The proper way would probably say hemp-lime, to get away from the concrete association, because a lot of people still confuse it. And I'm using that term a lot, and I'm trying to get away from it. I'm trying to get away from hempcrete term and say like hemp-lime in a way. So that's kind of a proper way. My name is Sergiy Kovalenkov, and I'm a civil engineer by trade. I would say most of my conscious life I've been involved in construction. I studied civil engineering in Canada, and always kind of had a vision towards project management, and that's what I've been doing in the very beginning of my career, up until I got introduced to hemp and hemp-lime, hempcrete. I got introduced to this man at the party in Australia, who was growing industrial hemp in Holland and in Australia at that time. And I never heard anything about that was 2010. Yeah, so I never heard anything about industrial hemp applications. And then when he started to talk about the housing, that they're building a first ever house in the history of Australia out of hemp, that's when I got really curious. And I love to tell that story. It's like we had a few drinks, and then I told him, okay, let's sober up, and then in the morning you can tell me about the cannabis house. And then he said, no, we're doing it for real, materials imported from Holland and France. And then I thought, like, okay, this is something very interesting. Why would you bring materials halfway across the world to build a house? And it was a fancy house, by the way, overlooking Bass Strait. And then immediately it kind of got me extremely curious about the technology, because I have never seen anything like this. I never heard about it too, And then he said, do you want to give us a hand? And I got really excited. And then a few days later, I was on a small plane going to Tasmania, on the edge of the world, to learn about this magical technology. And I have to say to you, without any exaggeration, now that we've been doing it, most of my professional career, this is arguably the best overall performing material on the planet, and I'll try to prove it to you today. And I'm sure you're already pretty much convinced if you're taking the course in such a beautiful school organized by these lovely people here. It's important to understand that now we don't need to bring materials halfway across the world. At that time, I was just following the orders. They were preparing the mix in a truck mixer, massive truck mixer. They were dumping bales and bales of hemp. Then we had a huge hose. We were standing on the top. We were pouring down water. I don't know how much water that was. We were eyeballing everything, dumping so many bags of binder. I just didn't know. That was crazy. It was soaking wet. We would dump it into the wheelbarrow, the mix, and then we would bring it to the wall, and we would put that slushy thing in there. And I saw water coming out of the foam work. And thank God that house dried up eventually. It was kind of a learning curve for me. At that time, I didn't know what was going on, but then I quickly learned this was an extremely wrong way to do it. But that's another beautiful feature of hemp-lime, is that you can always fix your mistakes. When you pour concrete or you install some insulation, sometimes you cannot redo things. You have to open up another batch or something, or mix it up or cut it. With this fantastic technology, you can always fix it up, and I love it. So after that, my life has changed, and then I went on to pursue my hemp building career in Switzerland and France. I was learning how to execute projects working with this material. A lot of stuff I learned: how to retrofit, how to insulate existing stone houses, existing structures. This was very interesting because if you are involved in construction, the rule of thumb is you have to insulate the building from outside, not from the inside. At that time, I learned that it's not true. So I started to learn a lot of things that were not true. And eventually, if the material is vapor permeable, you can insulate, and you must insulate all the stone or concrete buildings from inside if you cannot touch the facade. And it was quite an interesting experience too, because the way they build in Switzerland and France, sometimes they would build without any foundation. I mean, there is no separation between the soil and the wall. The mortar that's holding up the stones, it only works while it's getting moisture from the ground up, due to the capillary effect. If you isolate it, the whole wall will dry up and then crumble down, and the walls would be like, we're in US, okay, 3 feet thick, like stone walls. And it's very, very cold and uncomfortable to be in a house like that. Sometimes these houses were a few hundred years old, and in order to make them cozy, the only way would be insulating with hemp-lime from inside. That was a very interesting experience. And then I came back to Ukraine. I'm Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine, and most of my life I lived in Ukraine. I left Ukraine like about a year ago, and that was partly the reason why I couldn't commit anymore to U.S. Hemp Building Association. And as Gene and Ray know, I'm one of the founders of U.S. Hemp Building Association, and I was a director of education committee until the war came in, and I just couldn't focus anymore, when the rocket's flying above your head. So I had to step back and revise my life a little bit. I kind of jumped over my career in Ukraine. So in Ukraine, once I got back, I founded my own company called Hempire. So we developed our own binder, and now we manufacture it and build houses with it in Ukraine. I've done over 80 projects all around the world. And now we manufacture this binder in US, in California as well. So now we have two spots, and maybe there is going to be another one in Canada. We'll see. This is what I'm currently working on. Basically, what's important thing to understand here? When I got back to Ukraine, we developed our own formulation, and the rule number one was it has to be 100% Ukrainian. The formulation, it has to be 100% natural. And I stuck with that rule from day one. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of fancy ingredients that people have in luxury and access to in Italy, in France, in Belgium. I wish we would have this types of limes and porcelains and minerals of different kinds, but we don't. But we managed to do it, and I have to say this concept was a successful one because during the pandemic and during the war, we continued to build hemp houses, continue to stay alive. We had some adversities. We had to move our production facility. Some of the sources of our minerals, the factory went under occupation of Russia. We had to look for another sources of minerals. Then, on the 2nd of January, the rocket hit the building where we rent our office in Kiev, Ukraine, completely flooding the whole thing, smashing the windows, and everyone stayed alive, thank God. But those are the things we have to kind of tackle every day. So the conversations we've had during the war is like, okay, they didn't launch any rockets there. Okay, we're gonna send the guys over to the site. Those are the type of things we are battling. Not the codes, not the regulations, not the ignorance from architects or someone else, but like a physical terror, and mental one as well, that we have to get through every day. It's unfortunate what is happening, but our case is proving you the point that if you're building a house, you should be sourcing the materials locally. 10 years ago in US, it would be unheard of that you would be sourcing hemp from some hemp processing facility in some states. Now you have luxury of ordering it from different states. There are decortication facilities in Colorado, in Texas, in in Montana. I mean, things are coming up soon, probably on the East Coast as well. There is also Canadian suppliers now, very reliable ones, and those are the people I know personally. Those are the facilities that I have seen with my own eyes. So that's the real deal. And now, of course, there are different companies showing up, manufacturing different binders, and for example, and offering finally courses and education, like Tim. Tim he's a great knowledgeable man on plasters and straw bale construction. So these are the people that you should be listening to and learning from, because you don't know what are we going to build with in about 5 to 10 years from now. So hemp, being a agricultural crop that we can plant and harvest and process every year, seems to be an extremely viable and important plant, and a source of food, source of clothing, source of housing. So it's literally a plant for survival. That's why I always urge people to invest money into the hemp processing businesses, manufacturing, harvesting, and processing businesses, because they will supply all the necessary stuff to their communities. So you can have medicine, you can have clothing, you can have housing, you can have food. So those are the four major ones that hemp is abundant with.